Hey guys, First Seed Sports back at it again with another start and sit for this week. We are coming into week 3 of fantasy football, and we'd like to bring you a quick video every week with some of our favorite sits and starts. So you'll get 4 sits, we each take one, and you'll get 4 starts. So take this advice as you will. We have a pretty good track record, I'd like to say. So without further ado, Kyle, go ahead, kick us off. Who's your start for the week?
I'm going to get us started with Robby Anderson of the Carolina Panthers. He has been off to a fantastic start with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, and I'm buying into the hype. He is currently tied for 12th with targets, and I think he just kind of keeps gaining those targets, especially with the loss of McCaffrey in that backfield. I think this kind of forces them to throw even just a little bit more, and he's just going to keep getting those targets. He's going to keep producing. He's currently the number 5 wide receiver in PPR. I think he stays right there for even just a little bit longer. I'm buying the hype.
Yeah, I'll go with that too. He's really emerged as a deep ball threat now. He's really stretching the field for them. So they're going to need some big plays this week without McCaffrey. So I expect him to have a great week.
Dante, how do you feel about Robby Anderson?
Yeah, I think I'm all in on Robby Anderson, but I think the Christian McCaffrey not being there is such a big deal for that offense. He was mainly used as a safety blanket whenever Teddy couldn't find an open receiver. So it's up to that receiver core to try to create looks for Teddy to throw. And I think Robby Anderson is probably the best receiver to do that.
Yeah, I like that analysis. It's been interesting. It seems like Robby Anderson has been the focal point over even DJ Moore, who is supposed to be the wide receiver one there. So I like the pick. On a completely different note, though, the video of
DJ Moore is still going to get his –
What?
I said DJ Moore is still going to get his touches. Don't get me wrong, but Robby Anderson should still be able to do some damage.
Yeah, I agree with that. DJ Moore is always going to be a safe play in PPR, especially. But like I was saying, with Robby Anderson, I think even better than his fantasy output was that video that the Panthers sideline. Who's that bear?
Who's that bear?
Who's that bear? That video was hilarious. Oh man. All right. So let's move on to our start number 2 of the week. Mike, you got the floor.
So my start of the week this week, I'm going with T.Y. Hilton. For those of you that have been following the Colts, Paris Campbell just went down with an injury that took him out for the rest of the year, I believe. So I think stuff's going to open up for T.Y. I think him and Rivers just missed connections, big connections in the first 2 weeks. T.Y. actually dropped a touchdown last week that Rivers was joking around with him about a little bit. But I think that they reconnect this week against a middle-of-the-pack Jets defense that gives up middle-of-the-pack numbers to wide receivers. So I think it's a big bounce-back week for T.Y. I expect him to be more involved this week.
Kyle, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think last week against Minnesota is kind of a tricky week because they just blew them out of the water. So they just kind of kept things steady. But week 1, he saw 9 targets against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this week he kind of get the Jets with the more depleted receiving core. I think he gets his due. He'll be fine. I'm starting him.
Dante, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think the emergence of Jonathan Taylor is going to have defenses kind of scheming around him, so it's going to leave a lot more opportunities for T.Y. Hilton to break through that secondary.
Just to pile on, I do like this start. I personally am not sold on the passing offense in Indianapolis yet. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. I thought maybe it was Jack Doyle, then I thought maybe it was Paris Campbell. I still really don't know what to make of it, but one thing that I think we can all agree on is the elite wide receiver there is T.Y. Hilton, and hopefully Phillip Rivers will wise up and start going to him, feeding him the ball a little bit downfield. And that paired with a poor Jets defense, I think does make for a good start this week. Okay, I will go ahead and tell you guys my next, and my start of the week is Miles Sanders, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know it's kind of easy to say that a first-round running back is obviously going to be a start of the week. I would hope you would have him in your lineup. But nonetheless, I think he's going to be a top 5 running back this week, especially in PPR formats. Last week, the Browns absolutely disintegrated the Bengals defense, who the Eagles have this week. and especially in the running game and the running back game. The Nick Chubb, the combo of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt combined for 210 total rushing yards against the Browns, and pair that with a bunch of receptions out of the backfield, and that made for a huge week for both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. They both went over, or they're both right around 25 points in PPR. On top of that, the Bengals also allowed 144 rush yards to a Chargers team in week 1 that doesn't necessarily have a workhorse back like the Eagles or like the Browns do. Eckler and Josh Kelly are still kind of trying to figure out the situation there. And in week 1, a rookie's first game and a new offense and everything, they still put up 144 yards. Pair that with 4 touchdowns allowed to the running back position. I love Miles Sanders this week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I had my doubts last week against the Rams defense with the rough Eagles offensive line, but Sanders went out there and killed it. He looked like himself. He put up 20 fantasy points in PPR, and I think my doubts on Sanders are gone. I am 100% starting him against the Bengals.
Right, me too. And just to clarify, like Zach said, obviously first round guy, you would think that you would be starting him, but these are guys that we think are going to exceed their expectations for the week. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, right now with the Eagles, it seems like the only thing that's working on that team is Miles Sanders. So I'm all in this week. I think he's due for a huge week this week.
And Dante, what do you have?
Yeah, I agree, especially with I agree, especially with Carson Wentz not playing up to his standards, and the fact that they just lost another, receiver in Jalen Reagor. So I think I haven't been on board with Miles Sanders as much as you guys are, just because last season I had him and he was really finicky. But this is a recipe for him to have a big game, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up, Dante, in last season. One thing that I do want to just build off of that on is towards the end of the season, though, he did really click in as the running back 1 and as the workhorse in Philadelphia. And I think that's what we expect to see all season. And coming off the injury starting the season, I was a little wary of that, but last week proved to me that there's nothing to worry about. So against a weaker Cincinnati rush defense, I'm all in. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's move on. And for our last start of the week, Dante, who do you have?
So I guess you go with anyone in this receiving core, but I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb. Over the past 2 weeks, he's had 15 targets for 165 yards off 11 catches. He's going against the Seahawks, who have been the worst team in the NFL in terms of giving yards to receivers. And I think it's going to be a really offensive-minded game. It's going to be a high-scoring game. Dak just came off that incredible performance. I believe he won the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. So they're going to ride high on that. And I'm all in. I'm all in CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I'm buying him this week too. We saw a week against Seattle where Julian Edelman had a career high in receiving yards. N'Keal Harry had a solid week too, and I don't see this Dallas offense having a worse day against Seattle than the Patriots. So I'm right there with you. You can start anybody in that receiving core this week.
Yeah, you definitely can start anybody. I was extremely excited. My Cowboys pulled off a great win last week, great comeback win. But Dante's right here. I think CeeDee Lamb is the guy you want to start. Beginning of the year, I made a prediction about Michael Gallup leading the way, and it seems like through 2 games that Michael Gallup is more of the deep ball, big-time play receiver, whereas Amari Cooper and CeeDee are going to take advantage of what defenses give them underneath, and that's what it looked like for the first 2 games. And those stats that Dante was laying out about the Seahawks is very encouraging, so definitely a must-start this week.
I'm going to allude to one of my sit picks. I won't say who, but I think that there is one person that we're not going to start in this game, specifically in the Cowboys passing attack, but we'll get to that later. I do like the pick, Dante. I think that anything to do with the Cowboys receivers, the Cowboys offense right now is pretty damn hot. And I do like the pick, especially against a Seahawks secondary that's still trying to find its own a little bit. Obviously, the middle of the field is sealed up with Jamal Adams. He's going to do his thing. But even through watching him, I've seen him to be more of a run stopper and a run specialist, and as compared to helping over the top. So I do like CeeDee Lamb to reel in a lot of receptions this week and help rack up some fantasy points. Okay, so let's flip over to the other side of the script here. We're going to talk about sits for the week. Kyle, hit me. Who you got?
I'm benching Robert Woods this week. He's likely to be shadowed by Tre'Davious White, who last week held Preston Williams to just 1 reception and 26 yards. And yeah, it's Preston Williams. He's on the Dolphins offense, but that's still kind of a big deal. I think he can totally shut down Woods this week. And Woods last week against Philly only had 2 receptions, and his fantasy day was kind of saved on a rushing touchdown, which doesn't come too often for Woods. I know it happened a couple times for him, but I see him kind of getting shut down, and especially in this Rams offense, who if somebody's shut down even slightly more than somebody else, Goff just throws it to Kupp or Higbee all game. And I think Woods just doesn't get his bit this week.
Yeah, I'll comment on that quickly. I do agree with you that I think that this is going to be a down week for Woods. Obviously, last week Higbee put up 3 touchdowns, was a huge red zone piece for that team, and I think that continues this week until teams show that they could stop it. So I like the sit this week.
Dante, go ahead. You got the floor here.
Yes. As scary as that defense is, I'm actually kind of on the opposite side. I think with Sean McVay, he's going to come up with a creative way to give Woods opportunities to progress with the ball. I am scared of that defense. That secondary is disgusting that the Bills have, but I think there could be some upside for Woods, given the fact that they could be down early in the game, giving more opportunities for Goff to throw the ball. And yeah, I think I'm not all out, but I could see why you would have him sitting for this week.
Yeah, I got to give my man Bobby Trees some love here. I think that paired with the fact that the Bills have kind of a middling pass defense, they come in, they've allowed 513 yards passing already this season. So obviously you do the quick math, it's about 255 yards a game or so. I think that they're going to be able to move the ball a little bit on him. But on the other side of the ticket, I think that you can see Sean McVay is really trying to get creative with his rushing game and is trying to figure out how he can move the ball on the ground, whether it's Darrell Henderson or whether it's Malcolm Brown. So between the two of them, I think that he's really trying to push that ticket a little bit. So I could see Woods having a little bit of a lower week, especially given being trailed by Tre'Davious White this week. So good pick there, Kyle. All right, Mike, we're going to move on to you. Who is your sit of the week?
So my sit this week, I'm going with Mike Williams. I really do like Mike Williams. I think he's a gifted receiver, but obviously that quarterback switch is a huge thing for Mike Williams. So Tyrod in week 1 gave him 9 targets, and most of them were one-on-ones. They were just deep balls and jump balls. And they really had a connection going back from the beginning of Hard Knocks, the entire camp. So they had a great connection. And now with Herbert taking over, I didn't see that in game 2. And I wouldn't say that game 2 was a good sign for the rest of the season, but it's one of those situations that I'm staying away from. Mike Williams would normally be a wide receiver 3 flex, and this week I would look for another option to play over him until we see if Herbert will come his way or not, or if things change up.
Yeah, the difference that those quarterbacks make to Mike Williams' production, it's kind of crazy. I was expecting big things from Williams after that first week and those 9 targets from Tyrod, but just those 4 last week from Herbert, that's scary. And I probably am not touching Williams until we see Tyrod or even more production from Herbert to Williams. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm benching him.
I could see your argument, but it's Herbert's first game. I think he hasn't really acclimated to that offense yet and hasn't utilized the offense as much. So you can make that case, but I'm just not a fan of Mike Williams over the past few years. I've had him on my team. He just hasn't progressed, and I've usually traded him in fantasy. But I can't really base just off one game that I would sit Mike Williams just because of Herbert's performance. I'd have to get more game time with Herbert to see who he favors and how he surveys the field. So if you want to be out on Mike Williams, I can't blame you, but that doesn't mean that it's a sure thing.
I really don't have much more to add that you guys haven't covered. I do think Mike Williams is an extremely talented receiver, and I think that if his contract does end in where are they now, Los Angeles, and he decides to move on to another team where he does become the number one wide receiver, I think we're going to see really scary things out of him because I think he is that talented. Some of the catches that you get to see him attempt are just out of this world. So I do think he has the talent, but as you guys have all mentioned, I think with the rookie quarterback, this week isn't the week to start him. So good pick there, Mike. Okay. So as I alluded to earlier, my sit of the week is going to be Dalton Schultz, the tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. The tight end position for the Dallas Cowboys was always a very hot topic coming into the season with Blake Jarwin. Unfortunately, he went down with an ACL tear in the very first week. Hate to see that happen, but Dalton Schultz had a nice bounce back week last week as the impromptu, I don't know, de facto tight end one for the Dallas Cowboys. But this week is not the week to start Dalton Schultz if you went up and picked him up off of the waiver wire. Against the Seattle Seahawks, Jamal Adams is usually going to be the guy who is either going to get manned up on the tight end or a linebacker is going to get manned up on the tight end, and that's going to be Bobby Wagner usually. And those are two defenders that you just really don't want to see matched up on your tight end. In week one, Hayden Hurst saw 78% snap count, but in that game he only had 3 catches for 38 yards, and he's definitely one of the top 10, I'd say, tight ends in the league. And they were able to hold him to just 6.8 fantasy points. And this past week, I know that the Patriots don't have a really notable tight end, but Ryan Izzo, who was their tight end this week, went for 2 catches for 19 yards. So I just don't think Dalton Schultz is really the guy to go to this week, especially given how steady this offense is. Just a real quick sidebar. Mike and I were talking before the video started about Darren Waller and the Raiders on Monday night. And with Malcolm Jenkins, he just had to keep respecting Henry Ruggs and dropping deep, and that left this soft underbelly open. But in terms of the Cowboys, I think that Jamal Adams is going to be able to play down and cover up that tight end seam in the middle there, and it's going to give Schultz some fits this week. So he's my sit of the week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If I'm sitting there with Schultz and I need to start him at tight end, I will probably look elsewhere. Just naming a few guys on our waiver wire. I would honestly probably play Drew Sample, Jordan Reed if Kittle is hurt, or Jordan Akins out of Houston. I think Schultz kind of gets shut down by Seattle, and you just kind of have better options, I think, on the waiver wire.
Right. Yeah, and what I saw last week too, a lot of things from Seattle in general. I saw that their other safety, Diggs, who usually plays more down in the box with Adams, he actually got ejected pretty early in that game. So we didn't really get to see a good glimpse of what he'll be doing in coverage and stuff like that. But I think what Dallas did last week with Schultz, I think he had a great week. 1, because we were down huge, and 2, because they were taking away everything on the outside for us. That's why you saw Michael Gallup have a smaller day. So I would expect the same here. I think that Jamal Adams and Diggs, the combo of them two playing in the box to stop the run against Zeke this week, I think that them playing down there, I think it's going to be a bad matchup for him. So I'd probably look elsewhere.
Yeah, Zach, you made some good points. I mean, the clear point is that they're probably going to be covered. He's going to be covered by either Bobby Wagner or Jamal Adams, and that alone just scares me if I have him on my team. So I think Kyle was right about having Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed has been a really promising tight end so far. Barring any injuries, he could finish a top 10 tight end when this season's all said and done. So I'd probably ride with him over. And then I can't really add anything else more than that, to be honest.
Okay. All right, and Dante, you're going to finish us up here. You have your sit of the week. Who is who?
It's actually surprising. I'm going to go on Diggs. He had 13 targets over the past, or just this last week alone, for 8 receptions, 153 yards. 22 targets over the last 2 weeks. So I know why would you want to sit that? He's going against the Rams, who have Jalen Ramsey, who I'm sure is going to be on Diggs all game long. In general, they have the 4th best defense in terms of limiting receivers' yards, and they probably, even though he's going to have a lot of opportunities because the offense doesn't run the Bills' offense doesn't run the ball as much. Singletary gets usually 10 to 15 carries a game. I still think it's going to be a rough game for Diggs.
I'm disagreeing with you, Dante. I love me some Diggs, whether it's this week or any other week. I think Josh Allen is having a huge season, and Diggs is the beneficiary of that. I think he continues to cook against LA, and I'm sitting pretty with Diggs in my lineups this week.
Right, I'll go off of that too. I'm kind of siding with Kyle here. I think that Diggs is really the main piece for this offense. We're seeing what Josh Allen is doing right now, and I don't want to gauge a whole season off of 2 games, but I truly believe that Diggs is the centerpiece of that offense, and I think that they'll move him all over the field, whether it's the slot outside, to get him to be the most effective. I saw them do it against Dallas a few weeks ago with Ramsey and how he shadowed those receivers, and we had some success against them. So I 100% believe that Diggs will have some success too.
Dante, I'll hop on board with you. I think that Diggs is going to be a decent sit this week because in week 1, he matched up with Amari Cooper, who is known to be a route running technician, kind of like Stefon Diggs is. And yes, he allowed a lot of receptions, but it was only for 81 total yards. He allowed 10 receptions for 81 total yards. So in a PPR, I'd say yes, go ahead and play Diggs. But in a half PPR or standard, I'm staying away too. So I like the sit, Dante. All right, gentlemen, that was our starts and sits for the week. Any final comments, concerns, anything we want to throw in?
Nothing for me.
All right. Well, we have a full 16 games
Good.
getting ready to get started on Thursday night with the Battle of the Florida teams. We have the Dolphins taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's always a great matchup. So, but there is a lot of exciting fantasy stuff going on in those 2 teams. So keep your eyes open for that, and we'll see you next time.